Hello, and welcome to the directional video on program alignment maps. The purpose of this document is to make sure that we are demonstrating the alignment of program learning outcomes, or PLOs, with assignments or experiences in each course. By constructing the alignment map, faculty contribute to improving assessment efforts and clarifying the overall assessment process. There's a lot that goes into assessment, so we want to make sure that you have as much support and as many resources as possible as you are going about completing a new program alignment map or making any changes to the one that you have that already exists. So the purpose of this video is just to walk you through these directions to ensure that you understand exactly why these exist in the first place and how they can be completed successfully. Of course, if you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns pertaining to the program alignment map, you are more than welcome to consult with your chair, your dean, your fellow colleagues, or anyone on our assessment team who would be happy to help you out. So let's go ahead and get into the rest of this document. I'm going to make it a little larger so that you can see it. And of course, it is likely that you have access to this document from your chair or your dean as well, but I do want to make sure that we have it here on the screen. Relevant materials for this alignment map are only the following. You've been provided with a program alignment map template. It's an Excel file named programmapptemplate.xlsx. Deans and chairs will send this template to faculty via email. So you don't have to create your program alignment map from scratch. In fact, we don't recommend that you do that. It's really important for both assessment purposes, for HLC, and just for general convenience that everything looks the same. So uniformity, while we definitely want to encourage things being different and creative and critical thinking outside of things like this, we really want to make sure everything here is as uniform as possible. So you'll want to utilize this template in particular. Example alignment maps have been provided later on in this document. I'll also show you them in the video as well. And as you create your own, you are encouraged to compare them to existing successful examples. To reiterate, consistency really is key in situations like this one. So what you're going to do first and foremost is download that program alignment map template provided to you by your chair or your dean. And then you're going to fill out each category according to the provided titles. So let's pause before we get into what those examples might look like. You can see here on the screen there is an image of what this template looks like, but so that you can see the full thing, here is the template in all of its glory. So you'll have your program, and in this case here, let's say that my program was alcohol and drug counseling. That's what I would write. If this is a department, not a program, but English would be, that specific department. But your program in particular, accounting, alcohol and drug counseling, game design, etc. And then in these sections, you're going to write your program learning outcomes. I am going to go ahead and zoom in on that element in particular, because note that it does say program learning outcomes, not course level outcomes. There is an entire separate video, set of directions, a different document for the master course outlines. Those are your individual outcomes for each individual course. These are more focused on the bigger picture, your program learning outcomes, not the outcomes that you see in every single course, but the overall outcomes a student should be able to, meet by the time they're finished in your program. So you'll list your program outcomes over here on the left-hand side. In this middle section for program course, you will list the course or courses in which those outcomes are met, and then the assignment or experience that assesses that program learning outcome. Keep in mind, whenever you write what measure it is, what experience, assignment, etc., you don't just want to say the word assignment. That's fairly nebulous in nature, and we want to be specific. If it is a written report, tell me what kind. If it's an exam, you can say that. Don't just say discussion. Discussion needs to be, one, quantifiable, but we need something that can really be thoroughly assessed. So don't be vague in that section. You want to make sure you're being as concrete as possible, and we'll look at some really good examples here in a moment. But really, that's the gist of it. Your program learning outcomes, the courses, where in which those are going to be assessed, and then how those are going to be assessed. So we identify, we connect, we explain, right? Let's go ahead and go back to our instructions here. So there again, for our program section, right, your program might be alcohol and drug counseling, graphic design, etc. And there again, we can see that course or that column breakdown of everything that is necessary. There is a reminder here in bold on the document that reads, these outcomes must be program learning outcomes, not course outcomes. So you do want to make sure that you are providing those specific outcomes and not the big list potentially that is in your syllabi. And then note too, as you describe your experiences, you must write more than just an assignment. So in this example here from alcohol and drug counseling, the example reads as follows for the assignment /experience. Quote, choose a philosophical approach and prepare a 2-page paper outlining the details of the model. Compare and contrast the approach to other prominent approaches. And then prepare a written defense of your chosen philosophical approach to understanding and solving the problem of substance abuse. Be certain to compare its strengths and weaknesses to other prominent models. So in this case, we're not just saying, hey, write something, write an essay. It's a little bit more detail about what that essay really pertains to, what actually goes into putting together that assignment. Once you've filled this out, what you're going to do, number one, is obviously make sure that everything is spelled correctly, your stuff is consistent in terms of its visuals, and then you are going to save your work. I always recommend saving it somewhere on your computer that has a bespoke folder for assessment materials or anything related to your program. Just make sure that you know where it goes, and then you're going to use a specific naming convention for this document, and that is going to be PM, so program map, and then underscore program name. So examples might be PM underscore game development or PM underscore alcohol drug counseling. That is, for consistency's sake, making sure that as the person on the receiving end of these documents is getting them in their email, everything looks the same when it's uploaded to our academic SharePoint document or site. So we want to make sure everything is as consistent as possible. It's one thing to talk about these and being able to put them together, but we also want to make sure we know what those look like in practicality, right? What do those look like in practice? So here are some successful examples taken from program alignment maps that may even be available to you from your chair or dean. And of course, if you want examples, please by all means reach out. Everybody here at Mount West wants to make sure you have the resources that you need. So for mobile app development, for instance, a program learning outcome might be utilize industry standard mobile programming languages to create applications. Here is the course wherein which that outcome is met, and then here is how it is ultimately assessed in that class. So IT 237 is where students will have their first in-depth study of JavaScript by programming and running micro projects. Or collaborate with team members on projects working to develop mobile applications from design through production to release. In IT 242, will involve collective programming and debugging using a React.js projects. Students will be graded on their ability to collectively use critical thinking to develop and design these applications. Or in alcohol and drug counseling, use motivational interviewing to enhance the likelihood of successful change. And here are the 3 courses where in which that outcome is assessed. And here is how it's done. So a couple different options, right? Record a 10-minute mock session demonstrating client-centered counseling skills. Provide a review of the recording detailing violations of the model. Complete a series of papers addressing personal development events, demonstrating concepts of transference and countertransference. Or, in the second example here, screen for substance use and concurring disorders. And here are the 2 classes where in which that is assessed. And here's how it's assessed. Record a 10-minute mock session demonstrating client-centered counseling skills, provide a review of the recording detailing violations of the model, and then pass an exam identifying criteria for specific substance use or disorders. So as you can see, we identify our program learning outcome, we look at our courses in which we are trying to assess that outcome, and then we see how we're assessing it. So what does that assessment or that assignment, rather, or experience actually look like in practice? Again, keeping in mind, we're not just saying the word assignment, we're being very clear about what that assignment actually is. And then briefly, here are some frequently asked questions about the program alignment maps, such as when would my program alignment map need to be updated? The answer of which is the following. The map would need to be updated if changes were made based upon assessment data. For instance, if an assignment is changed or revised in some way, it should be reflected in the new version of the map. What if my accrediting body wants this information in a different template or form? In order to foster a culture of assessment here at Mount West, it really is important that we remain consistent. So that probably means, or may potentially mean, that you fill out the document this way for us and maybe a little different for your accrediting body, which ultimately, hopefully it's not creating extra work or anything, but we do really want to make sure that we are keeping things consistent. So that may mean you have to fill out 2 different forms. How often will the program alignment maps be reviewed? Curriculum discussions happen in February, so the review would need to be completed before then, and it's recommended that the maps be reviewed at the end of each calendar year. And then finally, can I change the color, font, or overall presentation of the provided template? We would really rather that you didn't. Make sure that you are not deviating from the provided template. Make sure that you are completing it just like these other previous examples. So to see these outside of a screenshot here is alcohol and drug counseling. I'll make it a little bigger so it's easier to see. So as you can see, we have the program outcomes, the courses where in which those outcomes are met, and then how they are met, right? What measure or assignment is being used in that class to assess that specific outcome. And as you can see, each one is very specific in terms of what those experiences or assignments look like. In criminal justice, we can see something similar as well, right? Program learning outcomes over here, the courses that are relevant to that outcome. So where does this outcome appear in these courses or in the courses throughout the program? And then the assignment or experience that assesses that program. So ultimately, the goal of the program alignment map is to demonstrate how your program learning outcomes are being met in those program courses and what those assignments look like when it comes to really breaking down or assessing how those students meet those outcomes. We want to make sure that we are able to really assess every facet of what's going on in terms of student learning, and this really helps the assessment committee keep everything on the straight and narrow and make sure everybody really understands where these outcomes are coming from and where and when they're assessed. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, by all means, shoot me an email, Morgan Byrne, Byrne, @mctc.edu, or you can ask your chair or your dean. Thank you so much.